Welcome to Plant-Based on Fire, the podcast that ignites your passion for plant-based businesses. Real Men Eat Plants is proud to host this show, where we shine a spotlight on the latest and greatest plant-based companies making waves in the industry. From startups to established brands, we'll explore what sets these businesses apart, what challenges they've faced, and what their vision for a more sustainable and ethical food future looks like. So if you're hungry for some fresh insights, inspiring stories, and a healthy dose of entrepreneurial spirit, then join us on Plant-Based on Fire, brought to you by Real Men Eat Plants.
And welcome to another episode of Plant-Based on Fire, where we're talking about plant-based businesses and their inspiring stories to thrive in the industry. I'm your host, Bryan, and joining us today is Sandra Nomoto. Hopefully I got that right. She is an award-winning ethical marketer for cruelty-free businesses, and I think we met through the Vegan Business Tribe. Is that right?
Yeah, we're both members.
Welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks so much for the opportunity, Bryan.
So tell us the name of your business and give us a little bit of that backstory. How'd you get into this business and lifestyle with us?
Yeah, well, I previously ran a public relations agency for just over 10 years. I closed it in 2018, and that was the year that I went vegan. That was an 11-year journey. And thank you. Yeah, so it's been just over 5 years. Super proud of that. And for a few years, I was sort of freelancing and figuring out what my next career move was going to be. I didn't think I was going to stay in marketing, and I sat down to meditate at the end of 2019, and my intuition said, you are a vegan now and you will always be writing. So put those two things together. And I know enough times that I've ignored my intuition. It just comes back to me stronger years later. So I listened to the call this time and I went, okay, let's try this out. So right at the start of 2020, I launched a new business, told everybody I knew, who do you know who runs a vegan business, who needs help with their content? And that's really how I started. So I was operating for the last 3 years as the content doctor. But I just recently dropped that title. Now I'm just going by my own name because I've since expanded my service roster from just copywriting to other marketing related things. And I also service authors, so I can help authors with different services to help them publish books. So I'm definitely not just a copywriter anymore, although that's how I started 3 years ago.
It's just such a wide diversity of different skill sets, right? I mean, so you have a book called Vegan Marketing Success Stories you published yourself, right, to help all of us on that front. And I think you won a Vegan Choice Award too, is that right?
Yeah, super honored by that.
Yeah, so just congrats on all your successes in our space here and growing
Thank you.
So the name of the business and where do we find it right now is Sandra Nomoto?
Just my name, sandranomoto.com. Everything's there.
All right, cool. And so probably similar journey to me. You know, I've probably been 13, 14 years down this path on that front, and we get into it. So tell us the secret. Like this is all about what this podcast is really about, in my opinion, is helping more plant-based businesses come in, helping celebrate and showcase amazing ones like yourself. So what is the secret, do you think, to making a successful plant-based business thrive?
Yeah, I wish I had an easy answer for that. And I really don't. And that's why I wrote the book. You know, I wanted to collect, what makes vegan businesses thrive, right?
Yeah.
And that was the main question. I said, tell me what campaign tactics you've used. And the answer I got back from a lot of the businesses was, well, we use a combination of tactics, first of all. And we just really just keep doing what works for us. There's no, a lot of marketing is trial and error, and it's an art and a science, really. And I've talked to so many podcasts that have asked me this, and I say, it's different for every business. One thing I can say is that no strategy is the same. So even if you were to try and copy what your competitors are doing, your audience is going to be slightly different. So, it may not resonate exactly with them. And the other thing that I've realized now that I've been able to step back and really look at all of the businesses that I had participating in a book is that the most successful ones, I think, have one unique marketing angle that they're using, at least one. And so they're doing something a little bit different than everybody else is doing. And and so that's kind of what I've gleaned.
That is awesome. And it's that the strategy, like even I think this is a newer podcast. We're trying to figure out our own strategy and growth, but just by hanging out with people like you and others, I learn a little bit on how I can hone in even this podcast on that front. So I think your style is exactly right. And it to me, I say it's, how do you set up those little micro experiments that you can do throughout your business, but especially in the marketing side of it? Do you have some techniques or some ideas and tips for people to brainstorm some of these micro experiments and, like, I guess I call it fail fast and figure out what works? Any tips for them on that?
Yeah, that's exactly what I I hope I share in the book, is that there are so many tactics that you can use, and it's impossible to try all of them at once. And so it's almost like a layering approach. I always say, like, when you're starting out in business and you're new to marketing, you've got to have a website, number one. That's your home base. I see businesses just starting on Instagram, and that scares me, because if it goes down for a day, that's your business, right? So you've got to have a website, try and have a really strong name. That can take some time. Folks might be wondering, should I use the word vegan in my company name? There's pros and cons to it, right? Then I say, have an email list, because again, you never know when a social media platform may go down or your website's under construction. You always want a way to contact your audience. So an email list, building an email list will help you do that. Of course, social media, and again, don't need to be on all of them at once, right? I always say, maybe save your company name on all of the platforms that are out there, and then, use one or two or three, really consistently and really well. And then the last thing I say is blogs, and nobody's, nobody wants to do blogs because they're not exciting and like, what am I going to say? But there's a ton of things that you can use as a blog post. Obviously announce what's going on in your company, but you can put news releases out there. Things like, oh, we won an award. That's an announcement you would use as a blog post. Even something like a podcast interview, you can transcribe that and use that as a blog post, and that will help organically increase your SEO, your search engine optimization. So when people, are typing in those keywords and your company comes up, that's what those blog posts are for. And so that's what I call like your 4 base marketing basics. And then from there, you can always layer on when you have more time, or if you have a bigger team and a more of a budget, you can always add on more. And like I said, keep doing what is working for you. And if something is not working, you've tried it for a month or a couple of months, obviously don't, maybe stop doing that or delay that tactic for a while.
Yeah, absolutely. That's just jam-packed full of advice. I almost ask you to go back and re-listen to that 2 or 3 more times and take down some great notes there. What is the tricky thing for me is around the balance between like going after every vegan on the planet with my product or service versus how do I get the new people into the fold, like the meat eaters that just want to try this, or the people that are veg curious or stuff like that. Like how do you create a marketing strategy that both resonates to both communities, kind of a thing, or helps people come into that fold, or it's not too veganish kind of thing? Or do you have some thoughts or advice for our listeners there?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I think I've touched on it in other podcast interviews, but nobody's ever asked that, which is great. You just went out and asked, should we go for omnivores or should we stick with
totally
vegans?
Should.
and exactly, that's what I say. There's nothing wrong with just targeting vegans if that's what you want to do. There's maybe 20 million vegans on the planet. That's a sizable market. But if you want to usher people along the plant-based spectrum, and most folks, I think, who are vegan and running businesses, we want to see a more vegan world, then you've got to integrate what I call your activism or your education. Folks in food naturally have to do this because most of the world is eating animals. And so they kind of have to say, well, here's why you should try our product, right? Whether they talk about the health aspects, the environmental aspects, or just what's happening with animals. So if you're in that boat, naturally you're going to have to figure out what kind of messaging you're going to use to touch on that. But yeah, I do recommend that most folks cater to omnivores in some way. And so figuring, again, it's like a cocktail. Figure out how much of that activism, or that education you're going to use to usher people along the plant-based spectrum. And then for the vegans, obviously, you just want to straight up say like, yeah, we're plant-based, we are vegan, so that you naturally will get those folks buying your product or your service as well.
Yeah. I want to unpack that, but we're going to take a quick, small commercial break, and we'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for that. We were just talking before the break about the targeting the meat eater world versus the non-meat eater world in that space. And I guess my question is really like, how do you... Gosh, I lost my train of thought while we were at commercial. I see so many companies that have vegan products but aren't like blatantly blasting it like it's vegan, and then I see vegan products that are like just not targeting that they don't have the packaging in the right way, kind of a thing. Like, is that a true marketing decision, you think, or is it just they need to focus on that a little bit? Or I don't know. I'm sure you've seen some of those examples too, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, everything's a decision, right? Whether the business owner is conscious of it, that's another question, right? And so, yeah, I think you really need to look at these details, like how big is that vegan word or the vegan logo going to be on your package, right? And I think it should be pretty distinctive, so that, like I said before, so that you do naturally attract vegans. But again, what else are you doing so that you also cater to omnivores? So I think it's really a fine balance that you've got to strike. But I think it's totally possible, because veganism, slowly and surely is becoming a good thing when it comes to marketing.
So what advice would you give to some plant-based entrepreneurs who are just starting off with their marketing strategy? I know you touched on reserving the names and a few things like that. It's almost overwhelming to start a business in today's day and age, but we need more entrepreneurship in America and worldwide for that matter. But what are some of those couple key tips as they first get started?
Yeah, I back up this podcast to close to the beginning when I talked about the 4 basic things that you should have. That's your foundation, the foundation for your marketing strategy, I think. And then on chapter 1 of my book, I do talk about basics. And that was a chapter I didn't plan on writing, but I just realized that things like tracking the customer journey are so important, because when you ask your customer, hey, how did you find us? Or what made you finally decide to buy? And then you replicate that. That's so important for to be able to replicate your success. And so market research I touch on in that first chapter. That's super helpful, because again, you cannot market to everyone. If you're marketing to everyone, you're marketing to no one. So really decide, are we going to go for vegans first and then go broader, or are we going to choose the omnivore path? But again, within that, it's, who are we targeting? Are we targeting moms, parents, youth? Business professionals? There's, so you've got to have a niche audience that you're targeting, again, just to help focus your messaging. Of course, everybody may be able to use your product, but you always want to have that core audience that you're speaking to.
I like to say, don't spend any money yet until you've done some good customer discovery, right? Yeah, like really hone exactly what you talked about. So, we met through a networking organization. You, I think, are involved in a few other places up in Canada, right? Networking. Talk to us about your networking aspects and how important that is, and help me unpack that. I think you're a co-host of something up in Canada, right?
Yeah, so I co-host Canada's only vegan networking group. It's called Veg Networking Canada. And you can find our, we don't have a website. Our homepage is YouTube, so very easy to find us. And and the only criteria to join our group is that you've got to be Canadian or working for a Canadian company, and you have to be vegan. Now, the folks that we interview as special guests don't necessarily need to identify as vegan so long as they're working for a vegan business. So we also bring in those folks and talk about their businesses too. About half of our weekly meetings are networking, and then the other half is meeting either a new member coming in or a special guest who works for a vegan business. So yeah, super cool that we're like the only Canadian vegan networking group. Feel free to join us if you're Canadian. And then, I just wanted to touch on just my personal journey. When I decided to start this business, I knew that I wanted to work with vegans. And so immediately I tested out Vegan Business Tribe. I took courses from Vegan Mainstream, which is another cool network in the US. And just really tried to find all of the vegan networks possible so that I could, just find my target client. So that's really helped me. And I continue to network in those places today.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And what do you like? Tell us some of your success stories. Do you have any memorable ones of helping unlock some like wow moments? I know I'd done some SEO in the past, and the first time I go the next day and I type in the name and it pops up first, I was just like, wow. What has been some of the wow factors throughout your journey here?
Yeah, so there's 47 contributors to my book, all great folks, and I added in another few dozen examples that I got permission to use from online. So a lot of stories in this book, but one that I'll share, who is another fellow vegan Business Tribe member, is that of Meredith Marin. She runs a company called Vegan Hospitality. But before she founded this business, she founded Vegan Aruba. So she relocated to Aruba in 2016. This is where her husband is originally from. And she found herself not with a lot of options, both in the grocery store and at restaurants. And she took it upon herself to really almost, make this island vegan friendly. So she talked to chefs at restaurants, said, hey, what kind of dishes can you make for me as a vegan? She spoke to local media, and she got in really amazing media hits, like travel magazines that were in the seats of airlines, in every hotel room in Aruba. And then, of course, built the account Vegan Aruba on social media, so that would attract more travelers to the island. She taught vegan cooking classes, and just a culmination of all of this boots on the ground work over 2 years also gave her the opportunity to partner with the Aruba Tourism Authority, and they sponsored an influencer trip. So they brought over, I believe, 6 US vegan influencers, showed them a good time. A lot of that content is still some of the top ranking when you Google vegan and Aruba. And then Happy Cow named Aruba the most vegan friendly island in the Caribbean. And this is all because of what Meredith, I think, started. So I love that story because it just shows you the power of one person. You may be a solopreneur like me and thinking, what kind of impact can I make? Well, look at this story. And because of what she did in Aruba, she founded Vegan Hospitality, which then helps folks like you and I to maybe do the same thing in our areas. So that's one of the success stories that I really love sharing from the book.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, you mentioned that, and now I remember seeing that when I was looking for vegan destinations for some of my vacations. So I will have to plan a trip to Aruba soon.
I know, right?
On that front.
We all gotta go now.
So you're deeply involved in the plant-based movement, and so how do you sort of envision that future for ethical marketing and its impact on sort of shaping a greener and healthier world that we're pushing for here?
Yeah, what a great question. And I believe everyone has their own form of activism, and every vegan can use their skills to forward this movement. And personally, mine is through business. I want to work with clients to help them improve their marketing so that they can grow and we can build the vegan world that we all want to see. So that's my form of activism. And, people tell me like, well, we don't want to rely on, processed meat alternatives. Eventually, we have to eat a whole food plant-based diet to really capitalize on the health benefits. And I say, yes, but there's that middle ground between, when we were omnivores and when we arrived at a mostly whole food plant-based diet. And there's that middle ground where I think businesses are so important. in ushering people along that plant-based journey. And that's where I feel like we really need to grow these businesses in that sector so that we can usher people along. And that's why I'm so passionate about marketing and folks in the space. Because I think it's important to just make vegan alternatives the default so that we don't have to call them alternatives anymore. Just vegan is the default when it comes to at least packaged products.
Yeah, I mean, my local coffee shop has dropped the surcharges on all the non-dairy milks finally. So
amazing.
I'm looking forward to the day when there's a surcharge for the cow milk.
That's how it should be.
That's something to look forward to there. What is the next steps for Sandra? Do you have some big exciting projects going on right now? Do you have some other books coming out? What can we look forward to hearing from you on in the future?
Yeah, I just ghost wrote my friend's memoir, and ghostwriting was always something that I really wanted to start getting into. So, and that might not be published for a while, but really excited to just get that experience. So if you think you've got a book within you, you need a ghostwriter to help just put, your thoughts down and make that a manuscript. I would love to help you, especially if you are vegan. And then I never thought I would work on vegan fiction because I'm a nonfiction person. But I just finished editing a youth fiction book by a vegan author.
Very cool.
Yeah, super exciting. And I'll be formatting her book before she publishes that. So that's one book project on the way. But always open to working with businesses as well on their marketing.
That is awesome. So again, just tell us one more time, how can we get in touch with you and connect with you and help boost you with our plant-based community here?
Yeah, I'm everywhere on the social and my website with my name, sandranomoto.com.
That is awesome. Thank you so much for being here. That's all the episode time we have today. But again, Sandra, it was a pleasure to hang out with you for a few minutes. You gave our audience some great tips on marketing. Check out her book, learn more at sandranomoto.com. And thanks again for sharing your insights and experiences with our community.
You're so welcome, Bryan. It was my pleasure too.
Until next time, everybody, keep that fire burning. We'll talk soon.
And that's a wrap for this episode of Plant-Based on Fire. We hope you enjoyed learning about the innovative plant-based businesses we featured today and got inspired to support them on their journey. Remember, plant-based eating isn't just a trend. It's a way of life that benefits your health, the environment, and animals. By choosing plant-based foods, you're making a positive impact on the world and helping to create a better and more compassionate future. If you want to join the Real Men Eat Plants community and get even more resources to help you go and stay plant-based, check out our blog, podcasts, and 30-day challenge at realmeneatplants.com. Thank you for tuning in to Plant-Based on Fire, brought to you by Real Men Eat Plants. Head over to Apple Podcast and give us a review, and let us know what you think of this episode. Don't forget to tag us at Plant-Based on Fire when you share this episode in your preferred social media. Wish to be a guest? We need to know about your plant-based business. Email us at pbof@realmeneatplants.com. We love hearing from our listeners. Thank you to our guests and to you, our listeners, for your support, and see you next time.